Hey, y'all, welcome back to another episode of the Power of Nine podcast. I am your host, Aaron Eggert. Today's guest was raised in a family of healthcare workers and chose to flip the script by building a career helping organizations creatively tell their stories. Now, let's spend some time learning all about my friend, Lisa McEllistrem. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. Hi, Aaron.
It's great. It's great to have you on. Are you nervous?
A little bit. You're my first podcast, Aaron.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're going to be great. And I'm really excited to share your story with our listeners. You've got a cool one. You said you're going to throw some curveballs at me. So I'm going to drop my back shoulder and hopefully swing for the fences on those. And we're just going to have a conversation like a couple of friends normally do, just like we did last week.
Perfect.
Awesome. So before I dig in, I want to make sure that I refer to you the correct way. Will you please share with me your pronouns?
She, her.
Awesome, Lisa. Well, great. Well, welcome again. I want to start out. There's always a couple things that I like to dig into, and that's nature versus nurture. And there's a paradigm shifting event in everyone's leadership journey. But I got to imagine the nature versus nurture thing for you is so interesting because you did, like I alluded to at the beginning, you did come from a family of healthcare workers. Your father was a doctor was a doctor and mother nurse. And so talk to me a little bit about like what, and then you got into being a creative. So what is going on here?
It was interesting. So my mom's side of the family, there's so many engineers and scientists. Her father could play music by sound. So he was a master accordion player. He could visualize math problems and know the answer without doing the work. And on my dad's side of the family, yeah, all of his brothers are physicians and nuclear physicists. So just a lot of academics, math, science loaded parents and genealogy, if you will. And then I come into the picture and I'm super outgoing and not nearly as, analytical, I think, by nature, but by nurture, that's just the life I lived. That's what I was surrounded by every day. And I really came to appreciate the logic. And I came to appreciate the organization of it. We all grew up playing an instrument, and there's such a cool connection between math and music. And science and analytics in music, and I think even the creative sphere. So yeah, I ended up going to journalism school, which brought forth. It was kind of an interesting merger, right? Of like storytelling, but fact-based and evidence-based. You always had to check that stuff in journalism school at University of Minnesota, Hubbard School of Journalism. Little plug there, and that really informed my thinking. But yeah, studio arts minor, oil painting. So it's a good right brain, left brain situation.
Yeah, for sure. I think even we'll dig into what you're doing now because you really do focus on the data side of things in marketing, digital marketing. But I think that there's so many things there that align well for you. What was your family dynamic? So I alluded to your mom and dad working in healthcare. What was brothers, sisters?
Yes, older sister, two younger brothers. Older sister is a physician. One of my brothers is a forensic psychologist, and my other brother is a business owner. So at least I had a partner in crime, right?
You're right. Yeah, it's like 50-50.
This is the only one off the path.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Do you and your brother? And I don't want to shun the other two because they're in healthcare. But you and your brother, that's an entrepreneur. Do you guys talk shop and like share notes and things like that?
We do occasionally, yes. I mean, he's it's great to have a sounding board, and his background started in trading stocks, so he's a really good financial background.
Yeah, cool.
So
when is your earliest memory of like when you knew that you were hyper creative and that you really were leaning into this whole creative side of, and kind of the odd gal out in the family to where you were the creative one? I'm using air quotes.
Yeah, I think early on I always liked to draw. I mean, that just sort of came out pretty early. Loved any sort of creative play opportunities. Like I love an Etch-a-Sketch.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that let me know. And then secondly, interestingly enough, I loved to write,
Mm,
voracious reader. And when I would execute my own creative writing, my sister's writing was so hyper organized, like
mm,
so well crafted and logical and beautiful segues. And I was a little like, I had to work at that a little bit more. It
yeah.
wasn't as naturally free flowing to me for everything to come out in such a perfect sequence. And so I knew my brain was a little bit more all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah. How about sports? Were you in any kind what or I shouldn't even
Yeah,
just say
my
sports, like
dad,
extracurricular stuff?
yeah, my dad had two girls right out of the bat. And he's like, "Where are the boys? Where's?"
Yeah.
So he was big. He's big into sports. He loves watching, baseball, basketball, football. And he had both my sister and I. We both joined a sport called ringette, which is a precursor to women's hockey.
Mm,
And we did that when we were, I don't know, still relatively young. And it's a straight stick with a ring at the end instead of
mm,
a curved stick with a puck. Otherwise, you're on ice, five people on each team. And I ended up playing for Team USA. I competed in Sweden and Finland with the team. It was a really cool experience.
wow.
I was part of a team or a group that ran hockey clinics or skating clinics for ringette players in Canada and in the US. So that was a really fun thing to do. So it was a truly cool experience, but he felt so strongly about learning how to be a good teammate
Mm,
and learning how to play with others and work with others as a team. So high school, I played soccer and volleyball. In college, intramural soccer.
yeah, yeah. That's nothing wrong with that. I want to so let's go back to the ringette thing. Okay, so first of all, the one thing you never told me was that you competed at that level. You just said you played. So
Yeah,
that's a very
yeah.
different thing that you played for Team USA and that you were in Sweden and Finland and you were traveling all across Europe. That's amazing. I can't even imagine the life experience that you had doing that, not only as that sport, but being able to see the things that you did at that age.
Yeah, the training was really cool. You learn a lot about different types of training, how to fuel your body with food, how to hydrate your body,
Mm,
how to do things. It's an anaerobic sport. So what's the difference between that and a long-term, long distance endurance sport? So I think that was really fascinating, and you bond with people when you're going through those experiences, and that is one thing that I think in this whole world of COVID has been really a struggle. It's hard to have those bonding experiences, but it was really a pretty fascinating journey. It
crazy.
feels
Yeah.
so long ago, Aaron.
Well, it's all relative, right? But I mean, I
Yeah,
think, you think about that and I'm just in awe of that first of all, before I met you, I'd never even heard of that sport. And it's obviously transitioned into women's hockey, which is huge, especially here in Minnesota, and the University of Minnesota they're great every year. So yeah, I think you were like a pioneer in that whole world before women's hockey was even a thing. That's amazing.
yeah, it was pretty cool. It was really cool. And it was a sport no one knew about. It was new even here. So when I
Yeah.
joined, we were some of the earlier players, but it was pretty fun to blaze some trails, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right. So you alluded to the fact that you went to the U. I know you did a brief stint at St. Thomas and then decided to transition over. So what was your college experience like? You played a little bit of intramural soccer, but then is that when you really started to figure out that you were meant to go into that creative space, or did you have that predetermined before you went to college?
I had no idea what I was going to do when I went to college. And so many people question, should you go to college if you don't know your path? And I'm always envious of people who are pretty incredible and gifted in math and sciences because they
Mhm.
just seem to know. And
Yeah.
when you are more in the liberal arts side of the equation, the world is your oyster. I mean, there's so many options and choices. So going through that college experience was actually really important for me to kind of learn more about myself and where my strengths were and what I was really good at. It also was the first time I realized there's a difference between a hobby and perhaps a career. So while I love to draw and minored in studio arts, and that was something that I had a lot of passion for, I quickly realized I was not that good. There
Yeah.
was some pretty big humble pie moments through that process. And I thought, okay, well, you know what? That's what you learn through this process. And I remember even when I graduated from college, my first job was with Star Tribune newspaper. And I went in to interview with a creative director who looked at my portfolio. And, I spent all this time on my portfolio and I was really pumped. And she said, yeah, this isn't the right field for you.
Whoops.
That quick. And
Uh,
I'm so grateful for that course correction. Like that
Yeah.
was such a moment that steered me down a completely different path that even when I graduated from college, I didn't know I would embark on. So
Yeah.
those things happen for a reason.
Right.
It was cool. So yes, creative, a huge love of storytelling. So grateful I had my first job at the Star Tribune because it brought storytelling, it brought my journalism,
Mm.
and it brought the creativity all together. But again, everything was evidence-based. You had to have your sources, and
Right.
it was
Right.
uh it was a good training ground.
Did you have any, I know you probably had a bunch of different internships and things like that through college. Was there an internship that really stuck out to you that was like, I really loved doing that at that time and really helped solidify the direction that you were going?
There was a day where I was able to shadow somebody at a small design firm called Headstrom Blessing, which no longer exists. But when I went there, and it actually worked there later in my life,
Mm,
which was kind of interesting. But
fun.
I realized it was such an interesting culture where people were bringing together strategic thinking, creative thinking, and executional excellence. Everyone talked about at that time and still do. And just, but it was more the craftsmanship around it. And
Mhm.
that was a pretty cool merger of things I loved. So that started me down the path of being in this crazy marketing field,
Yeah.
which I
Well,
love deeply.
so you were at Star Tribune for a bit. How long were you at Star Tribune as an account exec?
I was there. I started as an intern. And after I got kicked to the curb by the creative director, she sent me down the hall to someone in the marketing department. We hit it off immensely well. It was like my first real job interview experience. She hired me on the spot. I was there for about 2 years. Then I
Mm.
moved on to the design firm Headstrom Blessing, where, nice little foreshadow from my earlier college days. And then from there, I moved on to Periscope, where I spent a good chunk of my career.
Do you think that some of the time in, I'm using your words, not mine, getting kicked to the curb, from the creative side into the sales side of things, helped you in some of those jobs that you had at Headstrom Blessing and then even Periscope of the business side of being a creative? Because I think regardless of what role you're in within creativity, you got to sell, right? Like you got to be able to get people's buy-in. And I think that's being an account exec for a newspaper is a little bit of the school of hard knocks.
Yes, and I wasn't in the sales department at the Star Tribune. I was in the marketing
Oh,
department. So
okay.
we worked with agencies at the time. They had just signed on with Fallon McElligot, who was still Fallon McElligot at the time. So I
Gotcha.
just dated
Gotcha.
myself.
Yeah.
But some pretty incredible talent I was exposed to from that agency and the marketing department. But to your point, we would work with different departments throughout the paper, like the investigative journalism group, the newspaper and education group. And we had to understand how to help them reach their audiences and sell sponsorships and
Mm,
promotions to support the work they were doing. So you learned, yes, the art of persuasion, and honestly, the art of listening.
mm,
That was
mhm.
probably the biggest takeaway from that job, especially in a newsroom. It's
Right.
just, you have to listen for the cues and you have to listen closely. And that's a very underrated skill, I think, these days.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a learned skill. It doesn't happen overnight, right? And you're not really
Right.
born with it. I think it's something that you got to really focus in on. So when you went to Periscope, what was that transition? you were at Periscope for a long time, and so there was a lot of iterations of what Periscope was, right? So you
Yes.
clearly had to climb through that. What was your first role when you started at Periscope?
I started there, I think I was an account executive or a senior account executive coming from Headstrom Blessing. They had 65 employees. And
Mm.
19 years later, when I left, they had 535 and 3 international offices. So you can imagine the trajectory. I mean, it's a lot of years, but every 4 years, the agency looked different.
Right.
And it was pretty fascinating in those early years because we would keep experimenting with new disciplines or experimenting with new departments and bring groups of people in to initiate new services and new service offerings. Some would do really well and some would evolve and transform into something no one imagined, and some failed completely.
Mhm.
And there were a few colossal failures along the way. But we experimented because we were independent and we could.
Mhm.
Um, and that was really fascinating to watch. And I think it's going to be very hard. There's something about changing jobs every 3 to 4 years, right? And building on your
Mhm.
skill set and looking for something new. But there's something also about sticking with it over time in learning what it means to build a sustainable company, in learning what it means to build a sustainable culture, um, and how important it is to listen to the marketplace and respond to the marketplace.
Yeah, and I think 19 years, everything ebbs and flows, right? Like I
Yeah.
don't doubt you probably went through a couple downturns in the economy and a lot of different things that you experienced. Was there one lesson in that, like that ebb and flow that you learned that you took with you now that you think about almost on a daily basis?
Yeah, I think a couple, transparency. It's just so important that when things look questionable or are questionable, if there is a downturn, if there is something negative happening, over communication is more important than under communicating, and being
Mm.
fully transparent and honest about what we're facing as a team together so people can choose to step in and step up or step out. But it's just a very honest conversation. That is something that I really valued. The transparency was reasonably strong, I think, in a corporate culture.
Mhm.
The other piece is culture. How do you scale culture from 65 people to 500 people,
Right.
where you go from like knowing everybody and what they did on the weekend and who's engaged and who's having a baby and what's happening in someone's world, to I don't know the people I'm looking at anymore. And that
Right.
was such a interesting and challenging transformation for the company.
Yeah.
So I mean, in terms of downturns, it was all about communication, transparency, and honesty. In terms of the growth, it was how do you scale culture and how do you let culture live and breathe and not feel like you control it, but that you guide it.
Yeah, I think that's culture is if you think of culture as like an ecosystem, or like an amoeba, it's constantly changing and evolving. And as a leader, you're just there to guide it. And the people in the culture, right? Like
Yeah.
you can lead them, but they gotta be the ones that create it themselves.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And they have to have the authority, right? And they have to have the opportunity to do so. They have to be empowered to do it.
Yeah. Was there a project that you worked? Periscope's a super well-known firm, right? Is there a project that you worked on that you just always look back and just take such great pride in?
There were a couple. So I worked with the American Public Transportation Association, and it was the trade association for public transportation across the country.
Mm.
And what was interesting about it is they never needed to secure funding from the public. They never needed public influence to secure government funding. And with a number of years under Republican presidents, they did. They found
Mm.
themselves really losing their grip on funding. So we jumped on board, and the culmination of the work, like fast forward, the end point was Norman Mineta signing a bill that pushed through a significant amount of funding for public transportation that they did not think they were going to get.
Yeah.
And a lot of referendum passed across the country on many local levels. So that was pretty cool. The other piece was working for a Fortune 10 United Health Group, United Healthcare, and
Mm,
Optum were all significant clients. And I worked with the media team and led the business relationship in that particular piece for media. We had other people running creative projects and creative work for the company. And it was the first time I was truly in kind of a pure play media centric situation with a client. Like so much of my career was agency of record, and you do all the different disciplines, you bring them all to bear. This was all about media. They had a different creative agency for each brand.
mm,
But what I loved about it was the importance of really tracking and holding ourselves accountable. And we would get a common set of questions like, why are we doing this at all? How
mm.
much is it going to take? And why should we spend that much? Like, what do you expect for results? And those three questions from the C suite just stayed with me. Like, we have to be able to answer that for clients. Um, and then we worked with DreamWorks Animation, loved
Cool.
it. Like, such a
Yeah.
fun brand and creative culture. The whole company's based on idea making. In Buffalo Wild Wings, where we were social agency of record. So between Buffalo Wild Wings and United Health Group, I had a couple of clients where we just dug deep in one discipline. And that was, I kind of loved it. Like
Yeah.
that really set me up for where life has landed me. But
Right. Right.
those were pretty important experiences.
Yeah. Being immersed into Buffalo Wild Wings, is that something that you were like, okay, I love wings, or I've had about enough of Buffalo wings. I don't think I could eat another buffalo wing.
I,
Were you,
I
did
cannot
you get
eat any more
exposure to
Buffalo
that?
wings. I will not. I have not been to the restaurant since. So we'll leave it at that. And it has no reflection on their food, but I had
Yeah. Right.
enough. It was good.
Yeah.
It's all
Yeah.
good.
That's what I'm talking
Time to move
about.
on.
That's okay. I think I would even say that. I love those things, but I would even say that if I'm being immersed into that brand all day and all I'm talking about is wings. So I totally get it. So you alluded
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
that experience at Periscope and working with these, obviously UHG being huge, Fortune 10, right? And having to
Yeah.
have the data to support the business reasons for why they bring you on. That then I'm sure is a whole, I mean, you talk so much as I've gotten to know you about, the data is going to drive the work that you guys do at Modern Foundation. So you left Periscope and transitioned in. I know you did some freelance work and things like that, but then eventually now you're the CEO at Modern Foundation. Was that found, I don't, pun kind of intended, not intended, but was that foundation already built there from a strategy standpoint of how you're going to go to market, or was that something that you brought to Modern Foundation and influenced in because of your experience?
Um, there were pieces of it there. There were definitely some threads there, but it had not been galvanized or really brought forward in a way that contributed greater business value. They had some very kind of cookie cutter processes, and they weren't addressing clients on a very custom level, which is a choice. Like you can do either; it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I just am I am more invigorated and more energized by the challenges, and I think after the years at Periscope, that just set me up well to take these reins and to go into this world. So yeah, the experiences at Periscope working with those clients where it was much more of a pure play, social media, search only client relationships, all kind of came together in a really cool way.
Yeah. How long have you been at Modern Foundation now?
2.5 years, almost three, coming up on year three.
Nice.
Yes. Yeah,
What
it's been great.
what was your number when you got in there and you got your hands a little dirty and you got to look under the hood a little bit? What was your first initiative that you wanted to put in place to really start to make an evolution of that business?
Yeah, I believe it's from my perspective, I like to go in and really look at what's happening. I wasn't in a rush to put my thumbprint on things and just change things to change it. I wanted to see what was working and what wasn't. But there were a lot of things that just needed to get shored up in terms of the company structure and how they were operating. And I don't mean from a project management system or perspective, although that is, we continue to evolve that,
Right.
but a little bit more the backbone of a company. Like, what do you stand for? What are you really offering in the marketplace that's unique? How, what's the purpose? Why are we here?
Right.
What's our area
Yeah.
of focus? What's our special sauce? And a lot of that needed to be brought to life. We really needed to think about the market we were going after and who we were a good fit for and why. Um, and start to take some leaps and make some jumps to go in the direction I wanted to go.
Yeah, kind of niche down a little bit. What talk a little bit about like what is your focus or who's your target market that you're really that you really partner with well?
So we focus on personal performance, lifestyle, and health and wellness. And we love to work with mission driven brands. We love to work with brands that have a high growth goal, which often isn't the largest companies. It's companies that are smaller to midstream or divisions in larger companies that are kind of breakout divisions. And they tend to, from a just a mindset perspective, they're willing to take risks, they're willing to experiment, and they're willing to learn as they go and be okay with that learning process. So those are the ones we partner with the best from a mindset standpoint. Then they also have to be in that vertical. And that vertical is something I'm super passionate about.
Mhm.
It's not so much about med tech or about healthcare insurance. It's about um, our brands. What are the companies we partner with that help people live a better life, help people with culture or arts or consumer goods? Maybe it's clean products, organic. I always say crisp and green versus Buffalo Wild Wings,
Right.
or Whole Foods versus Cub Foods. It's just a mindset of being natural, organic, clean, food, consumer products, technology platforms that help consumers learn more about how their body is working, and biofeedback, software. All of those are just so interesting, and it's a field that is evolving tremendously, and we just love it.
So you share a little bit about what you do for these clients. So I want to make sure that we talk about that because we're talking about the types of clients you're working with, but
Yeah.
let's just explain a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, that it's so important from my perspective, we lead with digital strategy first. It's a strategy first mindset. So a lot of times we go in and we're doing analytics audits or UX audits or content audits so they can understand what the real landscape is that they're dealing with. If they have that well shored up, then we move on to personas and journey maps, and everything is through a buyer lens. So instead of talking about a persona from a psychographic mindset, meaning this is a woman and she lives in the suburbs and she's got kids in soccer, we don't really care. We care about their pain point. So whether
Mhm.
she's 25 female or 50-year-old male or anywhere in between, what's the pain they're trying to solve? And that's what we zero in on really well and take that customer through that journey. So, we always map against a purchase funnel, and use those strategies, that strategy process to drive media strategy, content strategy, et cetera, and then execute against that.
Do
So we've
you
seen some great case studies come out. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Do you so where do you see so I think those brands or those types of organizations are just blowing up, right? Like the wellness brands and leaning into organic and things like that. Where do you see yourself and what you're doing with how many people do you have at Modern Foundation right now?
We have 10 people right now.
10. Yep. So
So we're
you're
small. We're
yep,
small but
you're a good
mighty.
nimble, right? Yeah, it's a good nimble firm. Where do you see yourself going in the next few years?
I want us to really shore up our intelligence in the verticals that we're in, get a deeper set of insights and data around these verticals. I have no interest in being all things to all people or being all things, the digital answer for every single vertical. We want to be really smart about this vertical, continue to improve our intelligence and insights around it, and use that to propel our clients forward and grow. I mean, the piece I'm always the most proud of is when the growth comes from existing clients. Like I'm super happy when that happens, because it tells me, where the market is responding and the market is saying you're doing good work for us. And that's been pretty significant for us over the past couple of years.
Yeah, good, healthy, sustainable growth. Nothing, no rocket ship or 10xing or anything like that. Growth means a lot of things to a lot of different people, and I know you're very thoughtful about that. So I think you're approaching that the right way.
Yeah.
When I welcomed you at the beginning, I talked about nature versus nurture, and you addressed that really well. There's also a paradigm shifting event that happens when you decide that you want to take the reins of an organization and kind of put your stamp on it and lead that culture and be the CEO. When did that switch flip for you of when you knew that you were ready to take that leap?
Yeah, it's a couple things happened. So when I was at Periscope, I worked under 3 CEOs. The second CEO was there for 16 years and the biggest part of my tenure there. He retired early and did not have a succession plan in place. So nobody was groomed to step into those shoes from an internal perspective. And that left a pretty big imprint on me. And I'm sure everybody.
Mhm.
When the new CEO came in, it was pretty clear she had a very strong vision of where she wanted to take the company. And it was a pretty sharp shift from what we were doing. We had 11 disciplines, and we would approach clients as AOR or single source. And uh, she, she was doing a paradigm shift, which is
Mhm.
her right to do it. But it was pretty clear I was not the right person to stay on that ship because I
Mhm.
just wasn't on board.
Mhm.
So we parted ways and I was exited from the company, and it was the best thing that ever happened. Like that, I had been there for so long and I was so entrenched in the culture and the fabric of the agency that I don't know that I would have pulled myself out.
Right.
And it wasn't a good place for me to be with, it was going in a different direction. So that was a pretty significant moment in time. Then I had 2 years where I consulted, and that was amazing because I could get back to doing what I loved. I could
Mhm.
roll up my sleeves, I could dig in, do the work, and I just found the passion for it again. It becomes such a business when you scale up to that size. And I was so separated from the work, and I spent so much time managing teams and directing strategy, but now I could craft it from the ground up for a small set of clients. And I really love that. Um, During that time, I was unfortunately also diagnosed with breast cancer. So that was a pretty big punch to the gut, and that
Yeah.
happened in 2017. So, just shy of a year out of a company that I worked for 19 years, and you're kind of detoxifying,
Right. Yeah.
getting yourself out of all the
In a lot of different
behaviors.
ways. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, in a lot of
Yeah.
different ways.
Yeah.
Then that comes to light, and I go through that process. And I was so grateful and lucky that it was detected by a regular mammogram.
Good.
So caught very early, very easy to deal with when you have to deal with something like that. It was probably the best situation. Um, and it was just, I don't know how to say this, but it was very empowering and very emboldening. And in a weird way, the only thing I can relate it to, and this is probably a weird analogy, but um, one time in my life, a big group of us went skydiving at a jump zone in Baldwin, Wisconsin. And you could jump out of that plane with a chute on your back, hoping it opens up. I
Right.
jumped in tandem. So I had someone else. And I remember being on this incredible, like almost exhilarated high for probably a week after that moment. And when I came out of the other side of going through breast cancer and treatment, I felt that same sense of
Mhm.
boldness and empowerment. And I'm in the driver's seat. This is my life. What do I want to do? What's the impact I want to make? And how do I spend that energy? And how do I give energy out into the world became so much more important to me. So
Yeah.
much more important. And time, we all
Mm.
talk about that, right? Like it's the most
Yep.
precious resource, more so than money. Um, but it's the quality of the time and it's how you spend the time. And so a lot came out of those. A lot happened in those 2 years.
Yeah, well, you deal with a life-changing event like that. My wife and I went through the same thing many years ago. I think it's been 12 or 13 years ago now, and she's a survivor as well. And that for not only you but your support system kind of changes your perspective on things, and it's a little bit of a life-altering event, and you realize you got one shot at this, and you got to start
Yeah.
making your words bold moves. And I love that. Right, that's that's the paradigm shifting event right there. And cheers to you for keeping such a positive attitude through that, and then making something out of it positively.
Yeah, I think, going through it, when you first get the news, or at least when I first got the news, it was not a positive reaction.
No. Yeah,
To
same on
me,
our end. Yeah.
yeah,
I
I
don't,
think it's
if anybody does, then we got to have a serious talk with that individual.
right, exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Right.
It's a lot to go through, but I
Yeah.
will say, yeah, coming out of it, it's emboldening, it's emblazing. You want to go, you want to make things happen. And so when this opportunity came up, it just, I don't know, everything aligned, right? Like my background, my
Right.
experience, where I was on a personal trajectory, just having gone through some pretty significant pivot points and shifts in my life. And
Yeah.
I just knew what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I love it. I love everything
Yeah.
about it. Yeah. I didn't know that about you. So thank you for sharing you and your curveballs. You did promise some curveballs, and thank you for sharing that. There's a whole nother level of connection that we have, just besides all the business BS
Yeah. It's
so.
not, yeah, it's not something that, to be honest, this is really the first time I'm sharing this with any sort of business
Mm,
community. I mean, I kept it very personal for a long time. I just wasn't
mhm,
something I shared beyond friends and family. But coming out of COVID, everyone is going through this reckoning of
mhm,
where do you want to spend your time and how do you want to spend your life? And those moments matter.
mhm.
Not to be overly cliche about it, but
They do,
yeah,
and I think you sharing that too, there's people, hopefully people that are listening to this, if you're you being an advocate for them, or even just as just cheering them on, if they reach out to you, are you comfortable with just kind of helping them through some things, or sharing experiences or things like that? I mean, I think that's a big part of
absolutely.
being a part of the greater community. Thank you so much for sharing that, and putting that out there on this. But I think then taking it and being an advocate for that health, and it aligns. So I mean, holy smokes, like how no wonder you're passionate about wellness and things with
Yes,
Modern Foundation. It does all kind of come full circle.
it does. And that is why, I mean, I'm passionate about it. I always had been, but that just added, now you start thinking about everything you put in your body and everything you put on your skin, and just with a little
Hmm.
more weight to it. So
Yeah.
yes, they're brands I can stand behind
Yeah.
with integrity. And that means a lot to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Your story is amazing. I want to hard turn here to go to
Okay.
9 questions.
Okay.
So can you confirm to me that you have no idea what I'm about to ask you?
I have no idea what you're about to ask me.
All right. Is this the part you're nervous about?
A little bit. But I thought, you know what? I knew this was coming, and I thought, well, I guess I can throw Aaron a few curveballs too. So
All right, good. Let's do this thing. All right,
let's do
buckle
it.
up. All right. Lisa, what was your first concert?
The Kinks.
Really? Where?
It was at the stadium that no longer exists, the Met Stadium.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
Really
that
good.
was it.
Wait, did they play there by themselves, or did someone open for them, or what
Oh
happened there?
gosh, I don't remember. I remember the Kinks. Like that's why
All
I
right,
won. That's a whole group of us. It was like 3 carloads. It was super fun.
sweet. What is that still kind of your music genre that you go to? This isn't part of your 9 questions, by the way. This is
okay.
just us talking. Sorry, you're not going to get any passes here.
Yeah, right. Through high school and college, I loved the Kinks, U2, Violent Femmes, Husker Du, a little, I was a little bit all over the place, but
yeah, nice. Yeah, and we're little alt. I like it. What are 3 words that describe you?
I would say driven, focused, and creative.
Oh, you were ready to go for those.
I think they naturally came out of this conversation.
Did you listen to every single podcast and then just think of all the questions that I asked people and just come and answer all of them on a sheet of paper?
I listened to 2.
All right, good. The other word, we were in a Coalition 9 thing, and we were talking about the word descriptors. I said a word that I think that describes you well also, is I want to add thoughtful, because I see you're very thoughtful about your responses, and I think that says a lot about you. So I just want to make sure and throw that out there. How about you?
Thank you.
All right, close your eyes. What is your favorite sound?
Wind.
Just pure wind.
The sound of wind. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, today you're going to get it, because we're going to get a snowstorm and it's going to have some wind behind it. So get outside and enjoy it. I like the sound of wind through pine trees. It just has a different kind of wisping sound. So I always think of going up to the cabin when I hear that. Awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What is one thing? Oh, geez. I wish I would have known a few things in advance of asking this question, but well, you're going to have to come up with something new. What is one thing people would not know about you?
Oh, interesting. I really do not like stroganoff. Can't stand it. Can't stand it. Slippery noodles.
Oh my gosh.
It's no good.
I love it. That is such a great answer. Not what I Oh, that is such a good answer. Good call. I don't mind it as much, but that is really funny that you're that passionate. Okay. What is your biggest pet peeve?
Oh gosh. Biggest pet peeve. I would say not using the Oxford comma. Grammar, where's grammar going these days? Just where's it going? It doesn't exist. Construct a sentence, use commas appropriately, just plug in Grammarly. You can do it.
Did you? So Darren Lynch, you listen to Darren Lynch's episode. Darren Lynch his biggest pet peeve is the semicolon.
You've got new people who are challenged by today's state of grammar.
Right. And that I would never dream that. Oh my gosh, you guys are hilarious. Okay. Describe the current state of your email inbox with one word.
Overloaded.
Yeah. All right, good. That's probably what I figured, because some people say clean, and I had a feeling that you're a busy individual, so I had a feeling that it might be a little overloaded. What is a quote that you always refer to?
I don't always refer to a single quote, but I guess one I bring up with relative consistency is people don't change because they see the light. They change because they feel the heat. And I don't particularly love the quote, but I think it's important to kind of acknowledge human behavior in the reality of it and what really motivates people to create change, especially in our field.
Wow. That's a good one. Never heard that one before. And I can see why you don't love it, but I actually really like it. I think there's a lot of human behavior things related to that.
There's a lot of honesty in it.
There's a lot of honesty in it. Where is your happy place?
Oh gosh. Happy place. Used to be at the family cabin, which was sold 4 years ago. Oops, so my other happy place, I would say at times, is the North Shore or any ocean. I love the beach. I love the ocean and Pacific Northwest, like the raw beach with driftwood and rocks everywhere. I love the a good rugged environment.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting what water does to you too? I think water
Yes.
can heal a lot of different things.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you have water and wind together, and it's magic.
You're coming full circle here. I love it. All right. Last one. What is
Okay.
what is the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
You know what? When I was younger, I my parents sent me to Visitation High School, and it was, there's a lot of tuition involved. And only once in my high school career did I ever play hooky, only once. And I got caught. And
Oops.
my parents sat me down and gave me a talk about, you are the company you keep. You really have to think about who you let into your life and who you let have influence on you in your life. And that stuck with me because I
Wow.
got into
Yeah.
trouble.
Yeah. Well, if you do it once and you get caught, you're obviously not very good at it either.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I knew none of the tricks. I just, didn't show up.
I'm glad we didn't hang out because I would have been your dad and mom would have said the same thing about me because I skipped.
Okay.
Sorry, I was good at it. You did it. Congratulations. That was great. Nice job on the 9 questions. I'll tell you, in the last couple of years, I don't even know how we met, but you are such a welcome addition to the community that we're building, and you're, like I said, your thoughtfulness and the chemistry that we've built in the group that you're in with Coalition 9. I can just see the value that you bring your people has got to be immense, and the vision that you have for what you want to do and how you've really niched down with what you're doing with Modern Foundation. I just am very admirable of you and what you've done. And now that I learned that you're a survivor, I like you even that much more. There's so many things to like about you, and we have to figure out ways for people to learn more about you and Modern Foundation and the things that you're doing and what you're about. Will you share with me how people can get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, my LinkedIn profile is going to be the easiest and the fastest.
Okay.
So I would say go there. Modern Foundation
Yeah.
website, of course, you can fill out a form, and it will get to me. But LinkedIn is faster.
All right, cool.
And
So
Aaron,
I'm going to
thank
make.
you.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you for starting Coalition 9. At the beginning of COVID, and all the work you've done in the community to bring people together. It's been pretty incredible. I'm super honored to be part of the group.
Well, that's what it's all about. Good people need to know good people, right?
Yep.
Yep, that's right. I'll make sure and put all of your contact information, your LinkedIn profile, and then your website address in our show notes. So people that are listening, go to your show notes right now, click on those, and search out Lisa and get to know her because she's a complete rock star. On behalf of Lisa McEllistrem, this has been the Power of 9 podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Eggert, and I want to thank you for the privilege of your time. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.